The great chamber of Valora Prime was silent. 47 species sat in their designated seats, ranged in circles that rose toward a ceiling made of transparent crystal. Beyond that ceiling, stars burned in the endless dark of space. This was the heart of galactic civilization. This was where the powerful made decisions that shaped the lives of trillions. Ambassador. Eunice stood at the human delegation's platform, her hands clasped behind her back. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a calm face that revealed nothing. 12 years ago, humanity had stumbled into the galactic community. And in those 12 years, Una had learned one important truth. The galaxy did not respect the weak. It tolerated them. It pitied them. But it did not respect them. High Arbiter Mulketh opened the session with a wave of his ancient hand. He was a Peleron, a species so old that they had watched stars die. His skin was pale gray, stretched thin over bones that seemed too large for his body. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber like wind through empty halls. "We gathered to discuss matters of peace and prosperity," Mulketh said. "Let the session begin." Delegate Voss rose immediately. He was a Drimek, tall, and covered in scales that shifted color with his emotions. Right now, those scales were dark red. Anger. He pointed one clawed finger toward the human platform. "I bring evidence of human treachery," Voss announced. His voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. "They have been building weapons. Ships, armies, all in secret. All beyond the limits of the treaty they signed." Whispers spread through the chamber like fire through dry grass. Una felt the eyes of 46 species turn toward her. She did not flinch. She had expected this. "The Drimek delegate speaks without proof," Una said calmly. "Humanity has followed every term of the integration treaty. Our fleet numbers are registered. Our weapons are inspected. If Delegate Voss has evidence, let him present it." Voss smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. He transmitted data to every screen in the chamber. Images appeared. Human ships. Human soldiers. Human bases. "These images were taken by our long-range observers," Voss said. "The humans have twice the ships they reported. They have weapons that could destroy cities from orbit. They are preparing for war." The whispers grew louder. Una studied the images. They were fake. Good fakes, but fake nonetheless. The ship designs were outdated. The base locations were wrong. Someone had created this fiction to turn the galaxy against humanity. "These images are false," Una said simply. "The ship class shown was retired 3 years ago. The bases shown do not exist at the coordinates displayed. I invite any neutral party to verify this." Voss's scales flickered. He had not expected her to respond so quickly. But the damage was done. The seeds of doubt were planted. Una could see it in the eyes of the other delegates. Humanity had always made them nervous. Too aggressive, they said. Too unpredictable. Too willing to fight. High Arbiter Mulketh raised his hand for silence. "The matter will be investigated. Until then, we will proceed with other business." The session continued, but Una barely listened. Her communicator buzzed silently against her wrist. A message from Earth, encrypted. Priority 1. She excused herself and stepped to a private chamber behind the human platform. The message was from Admiral Taezung, commander of Earth's First Fleet. His face appeared on her screen, and she knew immediately that something was wrong. Taezung was a man who never showed emotion. But now, there was ice in his eyes. "Ambassador," he said. "We have a situation. Tell me." "The Kalvari Dominion has mobilized. 40 warships moving toward our border colonies, specifically toward New Busan." Una felt her heart grow cold. The Kalvari were not part of the Galactic Council. They lived beyond its borders, in the dark regions of space where law meant nothing. They were slavers, raiders, monsters who burned worlds and sold survivors to the highest bidder. The Council knew about them. The Council did nothing about them. "How long until they reach New Busan?" she asked. 20 hours at current speed? Maybe less. Has the Council been informed?" Taesung's expression did not change. The Council has known about Kalvari movements for 3 days. They classified it as a regional matter. Not their concern. Of course they did, Yuna thought bitterly. New Busan was a human colony. Human problems were not galactic problems. Not to them. What are our options? She asked. Captain Hannah is already in position with the destroyer Taigok and 4 support ships. She is shadowing the Kalvari fleet under stealth. Not engaging, not yet. Tae-soon paused. I wanted to inform you before I give the order. When we act, there will be consequences. The galaxy will see what we do, Yuna understood. Humanity's military doctrine was different from every other species in the Council. While others waited to be attacked, humans struck first. It was born from their violent history, from centuries of wars where hesitation meant death. The galaxy called it barbaric. Humans called it survival. The Council will condemn us, Yuna said. 50,000 people live on New Busan. Men, women, children. If we wait for the Council's permission, they will be dead or in chains before the vote is counted. Yuna closed her eyes. She thought of the faces in that chamber. The fear. The suspicion. The way they looked at humans like dangerous animals that might bite at any moment. After today, that fear would grow. But what was the alternative? Let their people die to maintain a comfortable image. Do what you must, she said finally. I will handle the Council. Tae-soon nodded once. Understood. I am contacting Captain Hannah now. The screen went dark. Yuna stood alone in the small chamber, surrounded by silence. In a few hours, everything would change. The galaxy would see humanity's true face. Not the polite diplomats. Not the careful newcomers. They would see the warriors. The survivors. The species that refused to wait for death to come to them. She returned to the main chamber just as the session was ending. High Arbiter Molkith approached her, his ancient eyes studying her face. Ambassador Yuna, he said quietly. I sense trouble in your heart. There's always trouble, Arbiter. Indeed. He leaned closer, and his voice dropped to a whisper. Control your people. The galaxy is watching, and they are afraid of what they might see. Yuna met his gaze without blinking. Perhaps they should be. She walked away, leaving the old Peleron standing alone. Above them, through the crystal ceiling, the stars continued to burn. They did not care about politics or fear or the fate of 50,000 souls on a small colony at the edge of known space. But humanity cared. And humanity was about to remind the galaxy what that meant. The command station. Magangwa hung in high orbit above Earth like a steel flower blooming in the darkness. Inside its war room, Admiral Tae-soon stood before a holographic display that showed the positions of every human ship within 100 light-years. His eyes moved from point to point, calculating distances, speeds, and possibilities. General Daeho entered the room with heavy footsteps. He was a large man with a scarred face and hands that had seen combat. As Earth's chief of defense, he had spent 30 years preparing for moments like this. He had hoped such moments would never come, but hope was a luxury, not a strategy. The Council still classifies this as a regional matter, Daeho said, standing beside the Admiral. They will not intervene. They never do. Tae-soon replied. Not until the bodies are cold and the slavers are gone. Then they send investigators. They write reports. They express deep concern, and nothing changes. Nothing changes. The holographic display shifted, zooming in on a small blue dot at the edge of human space. New Busan, a colony of 50,000 people. Farmers, engineers, teachers, children, all of them unaware that 40 Kalvari warships were racing toward them, hungry for flesh and profit. Daeho pulled up another file. Captain Hannah reports from the Taigok. The Kalvari fleet has crossed into neutral space. They will reach New Busan in 18 hours.
Yes!
Have they detected our ships? No. Our stealth technology is holding. The Kalvari think they are hunting sheep. They do not know wolves are watching. Tae-soon allowed himself a small smile. It faded quickly. Contact Governor Suwa on New Busan. She needs to know what is coming, Minutes later, Governor Sua's face appeared on the screen. She was a woman in her 50s, with gray hair and tired eyes. Behind her, Tasang could see the lights of New Bazan's capital city through a window. Peaceful, quiet, unaware, Admiral Sua said. I received your alert. How bad is it? 40 Calvary warships. 18 hours away. They are coming for your people. Sua's face went pale, but her voice remained steady. Can we evacuate? We have transport ships. We could save some of them. Evacuation is the backup plan, Taesoon said. Not the primary one. Then what is the primary plan? We end the threat before it reaches you. Hua was silent for a moment. She understood what he meant. Everyone who wore Earth's uniform understood. They had all learned the doctrine. Long ago, humanity had nearly destroyed itself through war. Bomb after bomb. Bullet after bullet. Generation after generation, they had fought and bled and died. And in all that suffering, they had learned one terrible truth. Waiting for the enemy to attack first meant accepting casualties that could have been prevented. It meant burying children who could have been saved. It meant standing over graves and saying, we should have acted sooner. So humanity changed. They developed a new way of thinking. If an enemy raised a weapon, you did not wait for them to fire. You struck first. You struck hard. You ended the threat before it could hurt the people you swore to protect. The galaxy called this doctrine barbaric, aggressive, dangerous, but the galaxy had never buried its children while politicians debated. Admiral Sua said quietly, my people are farmers. They came here to build, not to fight. Please, protect them. That is exactly what we intend to do, Governor. Stay calm. Keep your people calm. By tomorrow morning, the Calvary will be nothing but debris. The screen went dark. Taesoon turned to General Daeho. Send the order to Captain Hannah. Daeho nodded and opened a secure channel. Thousands of light years away. Aboard the destroyer Taigok, Captain Hannah received the transmission. She was young, only 32, but she had already fought in 3 engagements. Her face was calm as she read the Admiral's words. Beside her, Lieutenant Wu Jin watched the tactical display, tracking the Calvary fleet. Orders from command, Hannah announced to her bridge crew. We are authorized to engage. Wu Jin looked up. Rules of engagement? None. We strike first. We strike hard. We leave none. The bridge fell silent. Every officer understood the weight of those words. This was not a defensive action. This was not a response to an attack. This was a hunt. And when humans hunted, they did not stop until the prey was destroyed. Lieutenant Wu Jin, Hannah continued, coordinate with our sister ships. I want a full tactical spread. We hit them from 5 angles at once. Oh, no escape. No survivors. Understood, Captain? Wu Jin's fingers moved across his console. The 4 support ships, the Hansen, the Guangetto, the Yulji, and the Gabak received their positions. They were smaller than the Taigok, but each carried enough firepower to level a city. Together, they were death incarnate. Hannah stood and walked to the front of the bridge, staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Kolvari were laughing. They were celebrating their coming victory. They were imagining the slaves they would take, the wealth they would steal, the terror they would spread. They thought humans were soft, weak, easy prey. They were wrong. All ships drop stealth in 3 hours, Hannah ordered. We intercept the Kolvari at grid coordinates 774. That puts us far enough from New Busan to keep civilians safe and close enough to cut off any retreat. Wu Jin looked at the numbers. The Kolvari outnumber us 8-1. Numbers mean nothing if the enemy does not see you coming. Hannah turned to face her crew. We have surprise. We have precision. And we have something the Kolvari will never understand. What is that, Captain? We have people worth fighting for. The hours passed slowly. In the quiet of space, 5 human ships moved like shadows, invisible to every sensor. Their crews prepared weapons. They checked systems. They wrote messages to their families just in case. But there was no fear in their hearts. Only purpose. On the Taigok, Lieutenant Wu Zhen made his final calculations. The ambush point was perfect. The Kalvari would drop out of faster-than-light travel expecting nothing. They would find death instead. Captain Wu Zhen said, "All ships report ready. Weapons are hot. Targets are locked." Hana nodded slowly. She thought of the 50,000 people on New Busan. She thought of the children, who would never see the monsters coming for them. She thought of every world the Kalvari had burned, every life they had destroyed, every cry for help that went unanswered, because the galaxy was too afraid to act. Not today. Today someone would answer. "All ships," Hannah said, her voice cold and steady. "Drop stealth. Begin attack run." 5 shadows became 5 flames as the human fleet revealed itself, engines burning bright against the endless dark. Ahead, 40 Kalvari warships continued forward. Blind and arrogant, they had no idea what was coming. Warlord Reth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Fang, and smiled at the stars. 40 warships followed behind him, filled with warriors eager for blood and profit. In a few hours, they would reach the human colony called New Busan. In a few hours, 50,000 slaves would be his. "The humans are weak," Reth said to his officers. "They talk and talk in their council. They write treaties. They shake hands. They smile like prey animals, hoping the predator will pass them by." He laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. "They will learn. Everyone learns, eventually." His officers laughed with him. They had done this many times before. Raid a colony, kill the fighters, chain the survivors, sell them to the highest bidder. The Galactic Council did nothing to stop them. They were too busy with their debates and their votes and their deep concerns. By the time they finished talking, the Kalvari were always gone. "How long until we reach the target?" Reth asked.
8 hours, Warlord."
"The humans have no ships in the area. It will be easy." "Easy," Reth repeated. He liked that word. "Wake me when we arrive. I want to see the fear in their eyes myself." He walked toward his quarters, still smiling. He was thinking about how many credits each slave would bring. He was thinking about the screams. He was thinking about victory. He never made it to his quarters. The first missile came from nowhere. It struck the Crimson Fang's engine section and tore through the armor like paper. The ship shook violently, throwing Reth to the floor. Alarms screamed. Lights flickered. And then the second missile hit. "What is happening?" Reth roared, pulling himself up. "Report." His officers were screaming, their voices lost in the chaos. On the tactical display, red lights appeared everywhere. Ships were dying. His ships! Explosions bloomed in the darkness like flowers made of fire. "Enemy contacts." Someone shouted. 5 ships. Human signatures. 5 ships? Reth stared at the display. 5 against 40. It was impossible. It was suicide. And yet, his fleet was burning. The human ships moved like dancers, weaving between the Kalvari formation with terrible precision. They had appeared from nowhere, emerging from stealth at point-blank range. The first volley had crippled a dozen ships before anyone could react. The second volley was already coming. On the Taigok, Captain Hannah watched the battle unfold with cold satisfaction. Her ship twisted and rolled, dodging return fire that came too late and aimed too poorly. The Kalvari were panicking. They had expected sheep. They had found wolves. "Lieutenant Wu Zhan, target their command ship," Hannah ordered. "I want their leader dead." "Targeting now, Captain." Wu Zhan's fingers flew across his console. The Taiguk's main cannons turned toward the Crimson Fang. For a moment, Hannah could imagine Warlord Reth standing on his bridge, watching death approach. She felt nothing. No mercy. No hesitation. Only cold, absolute purpose. Fire. The shot was perfect. It struck the Crimson Fang's bridge directly, vaporizing everything inside. Warlord Reth died before he could scream. His body turned to ash in a fraction of a second. His ship continued forward for a moment, dead and drifting. before another explosion tore it apart. The Culveri fleet tried to retreat. It was useless. The human ships had positioned themselves to cut off every escape route. Lieutenant Wujan coordinated the attack with surgical precision, directing fire where it would do the most damage. Ship after ship fell. Some tried to surrender. Their signals went unanswered. The battle lasted 40 minutes. When it ended, the Culveri fleet was gone. 40 warships reduced to scattered debris floating in the void. Not a single human ship was lost. Not a single human life was taken, far away on Valora Prime. The Galactic Council was in session when the alarms began. Ambassador Yuna was listening to a debate about trade routes when every screen in the chamber suddenly changed. Images appeared. Live footage from Culveri reconnaissance drones that had been hiding nearby, watching the fleet. The drones had transmitted everything back to their masters. But the masters were dead now, and the signal was open for anyone to receive. The council watched in silence as human ships destroyed the Culveri fleet. They watched the missiles fly. They watched the explosions bloom. They watched 40 warships die in less than an hour. Delegate Voss was the first to speak. He rose from his seat, his scales pale with shock. They attacked first, he said, his voice trembling. The Culveri had not fired a single shot. The humans struck without warning, without negotiation, without mercy. The whispers began. They grew into shouts. Species that had always feared humanity now saw their fears confirmed. The humans were not diplomats. They were predators. They were killers. They had just annihilated an entire fleet without losing a single ship. And they had done it without hesitation. High Arbiter Molkith slammed his hand on the podium. Order, there will be order. The chamber fell silent, but the fear remained. Yuna could feel it pressing against her from every direction. 46 species, all staring at her like she was a monster wearing human skin. She stood. The Culveri fleet was 18 hours away from enslaving 50,000 of our people, Yuna said. Her voice was calm. Her eyes were steady. Men, women, children, all of them would have been taken, chained, sold, and this council would have done nothing. You would have written reports. You would have expressed concern. You would have debated while our people screamed in Culveri dungeons. There are protocols, Delegate, Voss hissed. There are rules. You do not attack first. You do not destroy an enemy before they strike. Your protocols protect predators, Yuna replied. Your rules allow monsters to hunt freely while their victims wait for permission to defend themselves. We do not accept those rules. We never will. You're dangerous, another delegate shouted. You are a threat to the entire galaxy. Yuna smiled. It was not a warm smile. We are dangerous to those who threaten our people. We are dangerous to those who prey on the weak. We are dangerous to those who believe they can attack us and face no consequences. She looked around the chamber, meeting every frightened eye. But we are not dangerous to those who live in peace. We are not dangerous to those who treat others with respect. We are only dangerous to enemies. The question you must ask yourselves is simple. Do you want to be our enemy? The chamber was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. High Arbiter Molkith stared at Yuna, his ancient face unreadable. But in his eyes, she saw something she had never seen before. Fear, not the fear of a predator, but the fear of a creature that had just realized it was not at the top of the food chain. This session is suspended, Molkith said quietly. We will reconvene tomorrow. The delegates began to leave, but none of them turned their backs on the human platform. They walked sideways, watching, waiting, afraid. Yuna remained standing until the chamber was empty. Then she looked up at the stars through the crystal ceiling and allowed herself one small moment of pride. 50,000 people were safe tonight. That was all that mattered. The galaxy burned with fear. News. Networks across 1,000 worlds broadcast the battle footage endlessly. They showed the human ships emerging from darkness. They showed the missiles flying. They showed the Culveri fleet dying. And they showed it again and again and again, till every species in the galaxy had seen what humanity could do. Some called it a massacre. Others called it a warning. Everyone called it terrifying. On Valora Prime, emergency sessions of the Galactic Council stretched for days. Delegates shouted at each other. Alliances formed and broke. Old enemies became temporary friends. United by their fear of the new monster in their midst, Delegate Voss stood before the assembly, his scales dark with anger. "The evidence is clear," he declared. "Humanity is a threat to galactic peace. They have shown us their true nature. They attack without warning. They kill without mercy. They follow no rules but their own. I call for their immediate expulsion from the Council." Several species voiced their support. The Drimic, the Kashari, the Morlani. All of them had watched the footage. All of them were afraid. High Arbiter Molkith raised his hand for silence. "Before we vote, we will hear from Earth's representative. Counselor Ji-Hai has traveled from Earth to address these concerns." The chamber doors opened, and Counselor Ji-Hai walked in. She was Earth's Secretary of Interstellar Affairs, a woman with silver hair and eyes that had seen many battles, both with weapons and with words. She walked slowly to the center platform, letting the silence grow heavy around her. "You are afraid," she said simply. "I understand. Fear is a reasonable response to what you saw, but fear without understanding leads to poor decisions. So let me help you understand." She raised her hand, and new images appeared on every screen. Not images of battle. Images of death. Images of burning cities and empty fields. Images of chains and cages. Images of children crying for parents who would never return. "These are the worlds the Kalvari destroyed," Ji-Hai said. 17 planets. 8 species. 400 million lives. All taken while this council watched and did nothing. Delegate Voss hissed. "We expressed our condemnation of Kalvari actions. We imposed sanctions." "Sanctions," Ji-Hai let the word hang in the air. "You sent them strongly worded letters while they burned children alive. You debated resolutions while they sold survivors into slavery. Your condemnation meant nothing to the dead." Ambassador Trell of the Sithani Collective rose from her seat. She was small, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. Her voice was soft but carried through the chamber. "I wish to speak," she said. Molkith nodded. "The chamber recognizes Ambassador Trell." Trell moved to the center platform and stood beside Ji-Hai. They were different in every way, human and alien, but their eyes held the same weight. 300 years ago, the Kolvari came to my homeworld," Terrell said. "We were a peaceful people. We had no weapons. We believed the Council would protect us." She paused. They did not. The chamber was silent. "The Kalvari took 2/3 of my species. They sold them across the galaxy. They worked them to death in mines and factories. They bred them like animals for the slave markets. And when we begged the Council for help, we received the same thing you gave to those 17 planets. Concern, debate, sanctions." Trell turned to face Delegate Voss directly. "You call humanity dangerous? You call them aggressive. But when the Kalvari came for a human colony, humanity did not wait for your permission. They did not write letters. They did not debate. They protected their people. And now, for the first time in 300 years, a Kalvari fleet is gone. Not retreated. Not sanctioned. Gone." She turned back to the assembly. "I do not know if humanity is our friend, but I know the Kolvari were our enemy, and humanity destroyed them. That is more than this council has ever done." The chamber erupted in argument. Species shouted at each other. Some demanded humanity's expulsion. Others called for alliance. The noise grew until Molkith struck his podium 3 times. "We will have order." Silence fell. Into that silence, a new voice spoke. A voice transmitted from far away, cold and calm and terrible. "High Arbiter, delegates. I am Admiral Taesong, commander of Earth's First Fleet." Every eye turned to the main screen where Taesong's face appeared. He stood on the bridge of the Magangwa, stars visible through the windows behind him. His expression revealed nothing. "You call us aggressive," Taesong said. "You call us dangerous, but in 12 years among you we have learned one truth. The galaxy does not punish predators. It appeases them. It sends them letters while they hunt. It debates while they kill. It watches while the weak are devoured. He leaned forward slightly. We refuse to be prey. We refuse to bury our children while politicians talk. We refuse to beg for protection that never comes. If that makes us dangerous, then yes, we are dangerous. We are the most dangerous species you have ever encountered. But we are only dangerous to those who threaten us. Delegate Voss stepped forward. And what happens when you decide we are the threat? What happens when you turn your weapons on us? Taesung's eyes were like ice. And pray you never give us a reason. The transmission ended. The chamber remained frozen. Jahai stood alone on the center platform watching the faces of 46 species as they processed what they had heard. We did not ask to be your enemy, she said finally. We came to this council seeking peace, seeking partnership, seeking a place among the stars. But we will not sacrifice our people on the altar of your comfort. We will not wait for permission to survive. High Arbiter Molkith rose slowly from his seat. He was ancient, older than most civilizations, and he had seen empires rise and fall. But he had never seen anything like humanity. He had never felt so small. This council will vote on expulsion tomorrow, he said, his voice heavy. Until then, all delegates will consider their positions carefully. The session ended. Delegates fled to their quarters to consult with their governments. Fear spread through the station like a disease. That night, Molkith visited Ambassador Yuna in private. His face was tired. His eyes were troubled. Your species terrifies me, he admitted. Not because you fight. Many species fight. But you fight before you are wounded. You strike before the blow falls. I have lived for 1,000 years, and I have never seen such a thing. Yuna poured 2 glasses of water and offered one to the ancient Pelleran. He took it with trembling hands. We are shaped by our history, she said. We learned that waiting for the enemy to strike means accepting losses that could have been prevented. We learned that mercy shown to predators is cruelty to their victims. And if you are wrong, if you strike against someone who is not truly your enemy, Yuna sipped her water slowly, then we will carry that weight. We will own our mistakes, but we will never apologize for protecting our people. Never. Molkith set down his glass and moved toward the door. He paused at the threshold. What happens when you decide we are the threat, Ambassador? Yuna met his gaze without blinking. And pray you never give us a reason. The door closed. Yuna stood alone in her quarters, staring at the stars. Tomorrow, the vote would come. Tomorrow, everything might change. But tonight, 50,000 people on New Busan slept peacefully. And that was worth any price. 1 year had passed since the Battle of New Busan. 1 year since. The galaxy watched humanity destroy a fleet without mercy. 1 year since everything changed, the Kolvari Dominion was gone. Without their war fleet, the predators became prey. The species they had enslaved rose up against them. Worlds that had lived in fear for centuries finally found the courage to fight back. The Kolvari homeworld burned. No one in the galaxy shed a tear. But the end of the Kolvari was only the beginning of something larger. Because the survivors, the freed slaves, the rescued victims, they did not send their delegations to the Galactic Council. They sent them to Earth. Commander Ginho stood on the observation deck of the M8 Yugongwa and watched the ships arriving, dozens of them, from species across the galaxy. They came carrying diplomats and refugees, merchants and survivors, all of them asking the same question: will you protect us? The answer was always the same. Yes. Jinho was 30 years old, the youngest commander in Earth's history. Admiral Taesung had personally chosen him as his successor. Seeing in him the same cold clarity that had defined his own career, now Taesung was retired, living quietly on New Busan among the people he had saved. He had earned his peace. Jinho turned as footsteps approached. Captain Hannah walked toward him, still wearing her uniform, still carrying herself like a warrior. The last delegation has arrived, she reported. The Sithani have officially requested a defense treaty with Earth. That makes 17 species, Jinho said quietly. 17 species that trust us more than they trust the Council. Can you blame them? The Council watched while they suffered. We acted. Ginho nodded slowly. He thought about the weight of that trust. 17 species looking to humanity for protection. It was more responsibility than his people had ever carried. It was also more purpose. Has there been any word from Valora Prime? Hannah smiled slightly. Chancellor Yunbai is addressing the Council right now. Far away in the great chamber where 47 species gathered, Chancellor Yunbai stood at the center platform. She was Earth's newly elected leader, a woman who had spent her life bringing people together. She had won the election by promising unity, hope, and strength. Now she was delivering on that promise. The Council had changed. After the vote, humanity had not been expelled. The motion failed by a narrow margin, with several species arguing that it was better to have humans as allies than enemies. Instead, humanity was offered a permanent seat on the Security Directorate. The small group that managed galactic defense. Some species had voted yes, out of respect. Most had voted yes out of fear. Yunbai did not care about their reasons. She only cared about results. 1 year ago, you watched us destroy the Kalvari fleet, she said, her voice carrying through the chamber. Many of you were horrified. Many of you were afraid. I understand. Our ways are different from yours. We strike before we are struck. We destroy threats before they can hurt us. To you, this seems aggressive, dangerous, unpredictable. She paused, letting the silence grow.
Boss.
But let me tell you about our history. For thousands of years, humanity fought itself. War after war. Atrocity after atrocity. We burned our own cities. We killed our own children. We came within a breath of destroying ourselves completely. Images appeared on the screens around the chamber. Old images from Earth's past. Trenches and tanks. Mushroom clouds. Ruined cities. Mass graves. This is what we came from, Yunbai continued. This is the darkness we crawled out of. And from that darkness, we learned lessons written in blood. We learned that waiting for the enemy to attack means accepting deaths that could have been prevented. We learned that mercy shown to monsters is cruelty to their victims. We learned that the only way to survive is to be strong enough that no one dares to test you. She turned slowly, meeting the eyes of every delegate. We will not apologize for surviving. We will not apologize for protecting our people. But we understand that strength without purpose is just violence. That is why I am here today. Not to threaten you, not to frighten you, but to offer you something. She raised her hand. For any species that chooses peace, we will be your shield. For any world that needs protection, we will stand between you and the darkness. We do not ask you to agree with our methods. We only ask you to judge us by our results. The Kolvari are gone. Their victims are free, and no one will ever fear them again. Ambassador Yuna watched from the gallery above. She had served Earth for 15 years, and she had never been more proud. Around her, she could see the reactions of the other species. Some were still afraid. Some were angry. But many, more than she had expected, were considering the offer. The Sithani delegate was the first to rise. The Sithani Collective accepts Chancellor Yunbai's offer, she said. We have already signed a defense treaty with Earth. We trust humanity more than we have ever trusted this council. Another delegate rose. Then another. Then another. Species that had watched their worlds burn while the council debated. Species that had begged for help and received only words. One by one, they moved toward the human delegation, choosing strength over fear. Delegate Voss watched with horror. His scales shifted through every shade of red and black. You are making a mistake, he shouted. The humans will turn on you. They will destroy you the moment they decide you are a threat. Ambassador Trell turned to face him. Perhaps, she said calmly, but they have never decided that a peaceful species was a threat. They have only ever struck against predators. Against slavers? Against those who prey on the weak. If that is the nature of humans, then I will take my chances with them. The session ended with the galaxy fundamentally changed. Humanity was no longer a newcomer trying to fit in. Humanity was a power, surrounded by allies who had chosen strength over fear. That evening, High Arbiter Molkeith found Ambassador Una standing alone in the empty chamber. Looking up at the stars through the crystal ceiling, "I have lived 4,000 years," Molkeith said quietly. "I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species ascend to greatness and crumble to dust. But I have never seen anything like your kind." Una turned to face him. "Is that a compliment or a warning? I do not know." The ancient Peleron studied her face. "You have changed the nature of this galaxy in a single generation. You have broken rules that have stood for millennia. You have made enemies and allies in equal measure. And you. Which are you, Arbiter?" Molkeith was silent for a long moment. "I am old," he said finally. "Too old to change, perhaps, but I am wise enough to recognize a new order when I see one. The galaxy you found is not the galaxy you are leaving. Whether that is good or bad, only time will tell." Una smiled. "We are just getting started." She walked away, leaving Molkeith alone in the chamber. Above him, beyond the crystal ceiling, the stars continued to burn. They did not care about politics or fear or the rise and fall of empires. But somewhere among those stars, human ships patrolled the borders of known space, not as conquerors, not as threats, but as guardians, as protectors. As the wolves that kept the monsters away, the galaxy had learned a new truth. Humanity did not wait for darkness to come. Humanity hunted it. And for the first time in millennia, the monsters were afraid.